On the evening of June 10, 2025, at 6:26 p.m., a chilling transformation occurred inside a South Alabama prison. The silence of death row grew heavier as Gregory Hunt, 65, took his final breath, not by needle, but through a mask delivering pure nitrogen gas. This grim spectacle marked the sixth execution in U.S. history carried out via nitrogen hypoxia, and the third in Alabama alone. In an age dominated by lethal injections and electric chairs, this starkly silent method emerged as the state's newest tool of capital punishment, an ominous evolution in how we confront ultimate justice. But behind that statistic lies a deeper, haunting story. A knight turned savage in 1988, a victim beaten almost beyond recognition, a long, legal battle, and a man whose last moments blended defiance, faith, and quiet finality. Tonight, we dive deep into the chilling world of Gregory Hunt, tracking every beat, every blow, every final breath. Born in 1959 in Catawba, North Carolina, Gregory Hunt grew up far from the nightmares he would later enact. For most of his early life, there were no signs of the anger to come. But the summer of 1988 would unravel everything. He arrived in Cordova, Alabama for a brief romance with 32-year-old Karen Lane. Their relationship, brief as it was, turned poisonous. What started as a few dates and stolen moments escalated into jealousy, rage, and violence. On August 2, 1988, Hunt forced his way into Lane's apartment in Walker County. Arguments flared, and then hulks of fury overtook him. Over the next harrowing hours, he sexually assaulted and brutally beat her. She would later be found with more than 60 separate injuries, including at least 20 to her face and skull. It was one of the most vicious murders Alabama had seen in decades, a crime born of jealousy, delivered with blistering brutality. The killer walked out as a stranger. The victim lay in Tacoma death cold. He vanished into the night, leaving behind battered walls, broken memories, and a grieving family. Within days, police zeroed in on Hunt. He had once dated Lane, but disappeared after her body was discovered. The force of the violence, clear from autopsy, spoke of rage, of hatred unleashed. September 1988 marked Hunt's arrest. He had fled suspicion, but no longer. Investigators pieced together the crime. Forced entry, evidence of sexual assault, savage beating, and the brutal coup de grace. Hunt had shattered her body with fists and a wooden broomstick, leaving her with broken ribs and facial fractures. He claimed it was jealousy, that he lost it when he discovered she was with another man. That inebriated madness would become the cornerstone of his desperate defense. By June 1990, Hunt faced trial for capital murder, sexual assault, and burglary. The courtroom became a stage for horror. Witness after witness recounted the violence. The jury heard of the 30 or so wounds, the broken bones, the humiliation and violation. It was a coordinated act of darkness. At trial's end, the jury faced a choice: life or death. 11 voted for the most severe penalty, 1 for life. The judge sentenced him to death. For Hunt, the process had begun, his first step down a road that would stretch nearly 37 years. Life on death row is brutal in its monotony. No sunlight breaks the stillness, no voices echo beyond the corridor walls. Hunt spent more than 3 decades living under the shadow of his impending execution. But in the silence, something changed. He discovered faith and began leading a Bible study in 1998, an attempt to forge redemption in the chaos of prison life. He spoke publicly about his poisons and demons, saying he shared scripture to help others. Some called it genuine transformation. Others saw it as a strategic effort to save his life. Either way, he was different than the man prosecutors painted him as in 1988. Seeking relief, Hunt launched appeals. In 2025, citing misleading evidence used at trial, particularly around forensic interpretation of a broomstick. He petitioned the Supreme Court. But his plea was rejected, and Miami's grinding legal wheels moved forward. On June 10, 2025, the state Supreme Court scheduled his execution. His window to live closed. In 2018, Alabama lawmakers authorized nitrogen hypoxia as an alternative and humane method. The concept: pure nitrogen causes oxygen deprivation without pain, without the visually dramatic shocks of electric chairs, without the chaotic protocol failures of lethal injections. For many opponents, it became a symbol of sanitized extinction, but controversy swirled over its ethics. During Hunt's execution, a clear oxygen mask covered his face. A canister pumped a steady stream of pure nitrogen, replacing every breath he drew with a gas devoid of oxygen. State officials prepared for his convulsions, shaking, gasping, slight head lifting, expected physiological signs as his body lost consciousness. But critics argued those were exactly the signs of suffering. Many called the method clandestine and zombie-like. Others claimed it was mercifully silent. Death sequences often bring rituals: the final walk, last hugs, last breaths. Then there's the last meal, a final taste of freedom. Hunt refused to make a special request. His last meal was the standard prison lunch: bologna, black-eyed peas, carrots, fruit punch. This was not a gourmet feast, just a token nod to ritual, served hours before the mask. He ate, but only enough to quiet hunger. When the tray was removed, he offered no words of remorse, no pleas. Instead, he flashed hand signals, a two-finger peace sign, then a thumbs up. No final speech, no scripture, no tears. Just a small gesture that said more than any words could, an acceptance of the end. A moment of peace or defiance, interpreted by whom it may. The room was cold. Guards prepared the gurney. Witnesses, family members of Karen Lane, prison staff, a handful of chosen observers filed in. A hush fell. At 5:55 p.m., nitrogen began to flow. A minute later, Hunt shuddered, lifted his head. At 5:57 p.m., a soft moan escaped him, feet twitched. By 5:59, he took 4 more slow gasps, then quiet. At 6:05, the mask was removed. His body, limp and pale, lay still. At 6:26 p.m., Governor Kay Ivey announced the execution was complete. For Karen Lane's family, it was closure. 37 years of waiting, wondering, hoping that justice would come. It's not about closure or victory, her family said. It's about justice and the end of a nightmare. The final rights of law had run their course. Alabama's Corrections Commissioner described the event as by the book, predictable involuntary movement, while rights groups remained skeptical, calling it untested, unregulated. And for Hunt himself, no last prayers, no tears, no remorse, just a silent whistle of nitrogen. This was not just one man's death. It was a test of the country's conscience. Nitrogen hypoxia raised new questions. Can an invisible gas-filled chamber ever be humane? Does offering inmates a final meal and the choice of execution method equate to dignity? Is a 37-year delay justice or a failure? Do final hand signs speak louder than words? Across the country, liberals and conservatives weigh in. For death row opponents, the gas mask is a new beast, an unseen horror. For supporters, it is cleaner, quieter, less risky than botched injections or electric faults. But for families like Lane's, it's simple. Someone killed their mother, brutally, and tonight, after nearly a lifetime, the state's ultimate penalty was paid. On June 10, 2025, Gregory Hunt slipped away under the hush of nitrogen. He left behind the echoes of a heinous 1988 killing, the hope of redemption, and the lingering questions around state-sanctioned death. In that quiet chamber, the two realities collided. The victim's shattered life and the condemned man's last quiet breath. The story forces us to ask, is this justice, swift, silent, decisive, or something darker? Do we evolve capital punishment, or do we merely cloak its brutality? When law ends a life, who stands to win, and who is left with silence? If this story unsettles you, if it shakes your assumptions, subscribe and leave a comment. What do you think of nitrogen hypoxia? Is there ever a humane way to kill? We as a society owe Karen Lane and all victims more than a plate of bologna and a masked man. We owe them truth. We owe them answers. Because while bodies break and time moves on, memory and justice should never be gas-masked into quiet oblivion. Gregory Hunt's life ended under the hush of nitrogen. Let his death not be the end of the conversation. For more deep dives into death row, execution methods, legal fights, and moral firestorms, subscribe and turn on notifications. Together, we'll navigate the darkest corners of justice, accountability, and what it means to draw life's final line.